Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark.
Do you ever wonder how people in the past pictured our future? Well, let's just say they had some pretty wild ideas. From the daily television newspaper to vacations on the moon, and even some incredibly handy classroom robots, the predictions on today's list range from terribly creative to downright strange. Are you ready? Because I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 amazing predictions people made about our future. 25. The Eternal Summer Bubble. Back in the 50s, nuclear power had everyone dreaming big. Like, let's build a bubble where it's always summer big. This retro vision shows a family by the pool basking in endless sunshine while snow falls on the world outside. The idea came from nuclear energy advocates like Lewis L. Strauss, who famously promised power, quote, too cheap to meter. People saw nuclear as a clean, limitless resource that could transform everyday comforts. Reality, of course, threw a wrench in those plans, but the dream of a personal paradise? Still pretty tempting. 24. Food delivery on wheels. In the 40s, artists predicted a future where food would arrive at your door in sleek, chef-operated vans. Kind of high-end, part cook and serve setup. These futuristic minivans look like sci-fi diners on wheels, complete with chefs inside and a delivery guy dressed like a cross between a 50s milkman and mailman. However, food delivery wasn't a new idea at all. The first recorded delivery goes all the way back to 1889 when Naples pizza maker Raffaele Esposito brought pizzas to King Umberto I and Queen Margherita. Flash forward, and while food trucks today tend to set up around breweries more than neighborhoods, this vision of hot meals on wheels was clearly ahead of its time. 23. The television newspaper. During the mid-30s, a magazine called Scoops boldly predicted the future of news with the television newspaper. The concept was simple but revolutionary. Every morning, the front page of the daily paper would appear right on your TV screen, fully printed for you to read over coffee. Can it be done? They asked. Spoiler alert? Yes. Just a few decades later, digital news on screens became standard. And while this vision skipped the modern detail of pop-up ads and breaking news alerts, it captured the essence of news at our fingertips. Funnily enough, even in the 30s, bad news made headlines. Some things never change. 22. Self-driving cars and guideways. Way back in the 60s, visions of self-driving cars had families enjoying road trips around a table and playing games in bubble-roof cars while the vehicle drove itself. These early concepts relied on guideways, roadways embedded with electronic paths that guided cars, rather than today's AI tech. Though we're far from table games on the highway, the dream of a hands-free, entertainment-friendly ride lives on in modern autonomous vehicles. And yes, with today's AI, there's no risks of dominoes toppling mid-drive. 21. The ship's cat. Here we have the ultimate travel companion, a cat. But this isn't your average feline. This one's seen the stars. Keith Spangle's artwork shows our space-traveling friends sitting with paws planted, staring out a window into the immensity of space. Outside, there's a huge planet and other ships floating by. And look at the seashells. Little reminders of Earth. Maybe souvenirs a sailor would keep. Spangle's piece has this cool mix of old-world seafaring nostalgia and futuristic space travel, tapping into that timeless pull to explore. And let's be honest, while cats usually watch birds, you have to wonder, what would they think of an endless stretch of stars and spaceships?
Alright, we've got to talk. Not about today's list, but about something that's probably happening to you right now. You ever get that creepy feeling someone's watching you? Yeah, that's because someone probably is. Every time you hop online, someone out there could be tracking your every click. But don't worry, I've got a fix. Surfshark VPN. With just a tap, I'm completely invisible online. My data, browsing history, and even my location, poof, gone. Oh, and did I mention right now, you can get 4 extra months of Surfshark by going to surfshark.com/list25? Yeah, it's that easy. Okay, quick confession. I'm one of those people who loves working everywhere I go. But public Wi-Fi? That's basically a playground for hackers. With Surfshark, I don't have to worry about my data being exposed every time I check my emails or pay a bill. It's like having my own personal bodyguard for everything online. And here's my favorite trick. VPNs aren't just for privacy, they help you score better deals. Flight prices can actually change depending on where you're searching from. So with Surfshark, I pretend I'm in another country to find cheaper flights. Last time, I saved over $200 on a trip. Seriously, it's game-changing.
Oh, and here's a bonus. Surfshark works on unlimited devices, so that means I can secure all my gadgets at once, whether I'm watching TV or surfing social media from my phone.
So whether you're looking for better online privacy, avoiding price discrimination, or just want to keep your devices safe, Surfshark has your back. And there's zero risk. They've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/list25 and grab 4 extra months for free. Seriously, what are you waiting for?
20. The future of phones, 1956 style. In 1956, artists envisioned a phone of the future that took quite a leap forward. Well, almost. This ad shows 3 phones: the oldie candlestick model, the modern rotary, and the futuristic phone, a sleek button-operated device with the dial built right into the handset. The most amusing bit is that it's still corded. It's not exactly a smartphone, but hey, they were getting closer. Though touch-tone dialing was still a few years off, this design nailed some early inventions, like buttons instead of a dial. And while they imagined a phone that was a little bit slicker, they didn't quite foresee the wireless touchscreen world we're tapping on today. 19. The 20-engine Jetliner of the future. The 70s had some high-flying dreams for air travel. Like this Jetliner so extravagant that it's basically a cruise ship with wings. This artist's dream had 20 engines, a multi-deck setup, and a glass dome showing off everything inside, including a pool. It's like they crossed a 5-star resort with a Boeing 747, which was itself a game changer for commercial flights in that era. And those round discs on the tail, it definitely gives off high-tech communications vibes, maybe even satellite hookups. Sure, 20 engines sounds a bit excessive, but back then, big ideas needed big engines. Just don't ask about fuel costs. 18. Japan's vision for the classroom of tomorrow. In this 1969 take on the future classroom, students sit in front of a massive screen with a remote teacher. And yet, all the kids are still in the same room. It's as if even in the future, kids needed to be caged together, tech or no tech. Each student works on a device that looks like a cross between a typewriter and a tablet, while overhead robots keep an eye out for anyone slacking off, ready to dole out some corrective behavior, should anyone have the wrong answer. This setup imagined computers as everyday classroom tools well before they were widespread in homes. And even though the idea is a little same old classroom but with robots, Japan's forward thinking definitely shines through. 17. NASA's 80s VR headset. As we're about to enter the 90s, NASA's vision of virtual reality looks straight out of a sci-fi movie, just much bulkier. They called it the Virtual Interface Environment Workstation, or VIEW, a system pairing a hefty headset with those iconic data gloves, allowing users to interact with a fully 3D world. It was clunky, but packed with advanced tech for the time. The headset didn't handle the processing itself. All that power came from external computers, making it powerful, but anything but portable. NASA originally built these devices for space simulations and data management, and they ended up setting the stage for the VR tech we enjoy today. 16. NASA's 1970s space colony vision. Let's stick with NASA's other vision for a second. Back then, they dreamed up what I can only call Space Malibu, an American suburb floating in a giant ring-shaped colony, complete with neatly arranged houses, grassy lawns, and mid-century architecture that wouldn't be out of place on Earth. It's as if the designers thought, why mess with the classics? This colony mixed earthly comforts with futuristic flair, using rotating gravity, open green spaces, and massive glass walls overlooking the stars. For all its sci-fi ambition, it still ends up looking like a 70s neighborhood just chilling in space. A suburb on vacation, if you will. 15. 1950s fashion, according to 1914. In 1914, Life magazine took a swing at predicting 1950s fashion, and illustrator Otto Cushing's vision was, well, let's just say, unique. On the cover, a nearly naked man and woman in futuristic attire gaze at images of fully clothed people from the 1910s, remarking, "Weren't they funny?" The man is sporting a barely there loincloth with bold body paint and a plumed helmet, while the woman's look is a mix between a Greek toga and a modern slip dress. Cushing was tapping into early 20th century ideas of changing social norms and body expression. With the noble savage trope circulating thanks to characters like Tarzan, it's no wonder he imagined future fashions as minimalistic and free-spirited. 14. A stacked suburbia. When our space for sprawling neighborhoods starts to run out, Where will we go? Apparently just up. This 1981 vision shows a 9-story high-rise suburb with each floor holding 4 homes, complete with small yards. The lucky ones on the top floor get an open sky view, while everyone else enjoys greenery and a view of their neighbor's yard just feet away. It's like Suburbia meets the high-rise, a design that manages to look both idyllic and oddly futuristic, echoing ideas we'd later see in movies like Ready Player One, or, probably the Jetsons. But unlike today's cookie-cutter housing, each level shows unique architectural touches, making this stacked-up setup feel almost cute in its retro-futuristic charm. 13. Shopping from home. Long before we had actual online shopping, 40s visionaries imagined a future where you'd skip the rainy day trips to the store and shop right from your kitchen. This image shows a woman chatting with a sales clerk via an oversized TV screen. It's like Zoom shopping, but with vintage pizzazz, complete with happy kids about to get home. This setup actually almost mirrors our shopping habits today, where screen-based browsing is the norm. And while they didn't predict Amazon or next-day delivery, they got pretty darn close when it comes to comfort. 12. The ultimate futuristic family road trip. Okay, this one might be a spoof since Bruce McCall probably created it in the 90s, but it nails that retro-futuristic vibe perfectly. In this scene, a family heads out on a road trip, each member surrounded by more gadgets than they have hands for. The only realistic thing is Dad's mobile phone on the stand beside him. The rest is chaos. The little girl has a futuristic mini piano, the dog's tuned into its own screen with headphones, and everybody else is hooked up to headphones, headsets, and a small army of screens. Known for his playful takes on life, McCall made this familiar yet alien scene feel like the 90s idea of ultimate road trip entertainment. And the funniest part? The family cat, too cool for tech, just turns its back on all of it. Classic. 11. The Neanderthals, pyramid style. I actually like this design. It reminds me of today's terraced apartments, such as Bjark Ingels mountain dwellings or Vienna's Alt Erla. The artist probably wanted to go for ancient architecture meets eco-metropolis and came up with a city built in layers, each level forming a step in a giant pyramid with terraces maximizing sunlight and views of canals below. The idea here was to create a sunshine for all setup, much like instead of one big flat roof, each layer gets its own dose of natural light, an early push towards sustainable urban life. For something imagined in the 70s, it still feels ahead of its time. 10. The Seiko Smartwatch of 1984. If you think smartwatches are a new thing, Seiko would like a word. Back in 1984, they rolled out the UC2000, a chunky gadget packed with a 4-bit CPU, a small LCD screen, and a whopping 2 kilobytes of RAM. Sure, it couldn't exactly browse the web, but for the time, it was like wearing a little computer. It had all the basics covered: time, alarms, a stopwatch, and even space for a few reminders and a basic calendar. But if you really wanted to go high-tech, you could dock it with the UC2100 for a full QWERTY keyboard, or with the UC2200, which even had a built-in printer. Practical? Maybe. Bulky? Definitely. But hey, if you took a tumble, this thing could double as a wrist splint, so it was fashionable and functional. 9. The 2020 Olympics. In space. First of all, let's just say 2020 didn't go quite as planned, and yes, I still see the comments where I said, don't worry guys, 2020 is just around the corner. I know that didn't age well. And those Olympic dreams, well, they got sidelined. Thanks, COVID. This image comes from the Usborne Book of the Future, which imagined the Olympics in space, complete with events like the lunar high jump, where athletes could launch themselves a full 14 meters up. The book actually got a lot right about personal tech, mentioning electronic mail, always connected devices, and even shopping through a big screen. But while they nailed some of our earthbound tech advancements, their dreams for space, let's just say we're still working on it. Didn't The Lonely Island have a song about Space Olympics? I think they did. 8. The air curtain entrance. In the 50s, they wanted doorways to feel futuristic. So, the air curtain entrance was born. Yep, no solid doors, just a stream of filtered, temperature-controlled air blowing downward to keep everything cozy inside. The idea was that a breeze would be just strong enough to stop dogs, cats, and drafts from getting in, but still gentle enough to leave hairstyles untouched. As an extra precaution, a water mist would occasionally spray to handle any fire risks from dropped cigarette butts. And if you're wondering how things stayed secure at night, a regular door would close it off. Fun fact, Companies like Burner took this idea seriously, and their air curtains are still being used today, although mostly to save on energy bills. 7. The radio hat. A few decades back, wearable tech took a truly unique turn with the Man from Mars radio hat. This eye-catching pith helmet from Victor Hoflick's American Marile Corporation came with a built-in AM radio and a 20-mile range, all for $7.95. With visible vacuum tubes, a tuning dial, and a battery pack, the radio hat was hard to miss. Hoflick even had teens model his hat in the newspapers across the country, giving it its own 15 minutes of fame. Unfortunately, clever as it was, the bulky design and heavy battery pack made it a bit impractical, and by 1950, it had disappeared from stores. Still, the early attempt at portable entertainment probably paved the way for pocket radios, Walkmans, and the wireless earphones and streaming services we have today. 6. The 1958 vision of 21st century farming. Someone had a pretty bold vision for the future of farming at the end of the 1950s, a setup where fields would be run by robots and remote controls instead of farmers. From an airborne control tower overseeing a swarm of robot tractors to space-age gyrocopters and implements all responding to radio signals from above. The idea was that with just a few push buttons, farmers could manage their crops from afar, using helicopter tech, radio waves, and machines programmed to follow commands. It sounds ambitious, but it's not too far off from today's GPS-guided tractors and drone crop monitoring. Today, with satellites in the mix, farmers can plant, irrigate, and harvest with pinpoint accuracy. It's actually incredible. And all that sounds a lot like Horizons at Epcot. Rest in peace. 5. The giant pinball rail. Would you swap your commute for a pleasure ball ride? Phrasing. In 1946, artists dreamed up a mass transit system that would feel more like an amusement park. Their concept? A giant 3-story glass ball carrying passengers along a scenic 1,000-mile route, like a rolling luxury hotel. It's almost like they envisioned a city block on wheels, complete with panoramic views, and the headline, "Trade your trouble for a bubble." Of course, questions come to mind. How would you keep it from overheating in the sun? And can you imagine controlling the momentum of a giant bubble rolling down a mountain? It's an ambitious, roller coaster-like idea that never saw the light of day. Then that might be a good thing. 4. Future visions from a German chocolate factory. When it came to imagining the world of tomorrow, you'd expect scientists or inventors to lead the charge. But in 1900, a German chocolate company, Theodor Hildebrand & Son, gave future forecasting a try. Known for pioneering steam-powered chocolate production in Prussia, Hildebrand didn't just make sweets affordable, they also handed out collectible cards illustrating wild predictions for the 21st century. My favorite is the walking on water one, where people wore tiny hot air balloon things strapped to their shoulders and a cross between skis and snowshoes to keep them afloat. There's even a horse and carriage in the background gliding over the water. I know, but hey, they were chocolate makers, not physicists. And in classic retro-futuristic style, they imagined all these advances while fashion stayed exactly the same. Suits, hats, and all. 3. A not-so-express ocean liner. This futuristic 1930s idea shows an ocean liner that's equal parts submersible, airship, and luxury cruiser, built for speed and decked out with windows and lights. Somewhere between a submarine and a zeppelin, crossed with a sleek, closed design, maybe to keep water out or perhaps to dive underwater if needed. Who knows? It definitely looks fast, but practical? Not quite. It's the kind of ambitious design that feels right at home in a retro cartoon, and while the idea of a hybrid airship submarine never took off, the 30s did bring us record-breaking ocean liners like the Queen Mary and SS Normandy, which made transatlantic travel feel like a 5-star experience. 2. Japan's vision for vacations on the moon. Lunar getaways, anyone? This retro-futuristic vision imagines the perfect moon vacation, with massive spherical pods as vacation homes firmly planted on the lunar surface. Travelers arrive in their very own spaceship that looks straight out of the Jetsons, and everyone's sporting clunky spacesuits, including the family dog, who's ready for its walk across the moon's surface. But you have to wonder, wouldn't that spacesuit cleanup be a bit harder than just letting the pup roam in a lunar rover? 1. The nuke-proof underground city below Manhattan. In 1969, Oscar Newman imagined an entire city safely tucked beneath Manhattan in case of nuclear disaster. His vision included a massive dome-shaped metropolis with a street grid, buildings, and all the essentials, like some subterranean New York 2.0. Hello, Futurama. New York wasn't the first to toy with underground living. Even in the 20s, New York architects had dreams of moving roads below ground to keep Manhattan streets clear. But Newman took it to the next level, creating a space where you'd have everything you needed to live comfortably if the world went sideways. And we have to give a nod to the lonely janitor they probably hired to keep this place in working order while it sat empty. Here's your underground city. Take care of it, please. Imagine the set of keys he'd need, not to mention all the ads they'd inevitably project onto the dome's walls because, hello, this is America. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed today's list, you'll love the one we did a while back on 25 shocking scientific predictions coming true. Flying cars, a plant-based diet, machines outsmarting people. These ideas seemed wild at first, but they've become part of our everyday reality. If you're ready to see what science fiction has turned into science fact, just click the link right here, and I'll catch you next time.